academic staff, Dr. Harvindar Kaur, Dr. Raziana, Encik Shahril Effendi, and Encik Rohaizak in this initiative. We are also pleased to share the opportunity of learning about media literacy with Dr. Alex Grech from the University of Malta. Finally, Dr. Md Rosli, also from OUM, will promote the Japanese language, Japanese culture, and his experience learning and working in Japan. We hope to promote the world languages offered by OUM. We hope you will enjoy the program and benefit from it as well. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate the organizer, Center for Research and Innovation from Open University Malaysia, for organizing this webinar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Izanee Awang. Okay, now we will start with first topic on parents' role in promoting development of literacy skills by Associate Professor Dr. Fatimah Yusooff.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Hari ini giliran saya untuk membincangkan tentang parents' role in promoting development of literacy skill. So dengan kata lain ialah peranan keluarga, peranan ahli keluarga dalam mempromosikan perkembangan literasi skill. Okey, kita lihat di sini apa yang dimaksudkan dengan literasi ialah asas kepada pembacaan, penulisan, komunikasi dan juga socializing dengan ahli-ahli yang lain. Sebab ini merupakan faktor awal yang sangat penting apabila kita menyebutkan literasi. Ya, kita lihat di sini, literasi ini berlaku pada peringkat awal pembelajaran, ya, seperti sound, seperti bunyian, perkataan dan juga bahasa. Ini merupakan satu faktor yang amat penting sebagai parents ataupun sebagai ahli keluarga memahami apa yang sedang diucapkan oleh anak kita. Okey, so kita lihat di sini bagaimana kita menggalakkan perkembangan literasi ialah misalnya literasi ini kita menggalakkan supaya ia berlaku di kalangan kanak-kanak, terutamanya semasa di sekolah. Kanak-kanak itu boleh socialize dengan kawan-kawan yang lain, ia boleh menyelesaikan masalah, ya, membuat decision making dan juga untuk membantu anak-anak itu menjadi lebih independen bagaimana pengurusan wang dan pengurusan kerja, ya. Sebab di kalangan kanak-kanak juga ia berlaku misalnya dalam decision making, bagaimana membuat keputusan. Mungkin membuat keputusan yang ringan seperti macam mana nak menulis, macam mana nak minum, macam mana nak simpan buku. Ini adalah keputusan-keputusan yang ringan yang mana ia akan membantu perkembangan literasi. Okay. Jadi sebelum kanak-kanak itu misalnya melihat dengan lebih lanjut tentang perkembangan literasi, keperluan adalah penting untuk kanak-kanak itu membolehkan ia bercakap, ya, mendengar, memahami, melihat dan melukis, ya. Okey. So kita lihat di sini bagaimanakah kita dapat membantu kanak-kanak itu dalam literasi, dalam perkembangan literasi ialah dengan cara berkomunikasi dengan anak-anak, membaca bersama-sama dan juga bermain dengan anak-anak tadi. Ya, misalnya kalau kita berkomunikasi dengan anak-anak, ini akan membantu kanak-kanak itu develop ataupun membentuk kebolehan untuk bercakap, memahami dan mendengar, ya. Kalau misalnya kita berbual dengan anak kecil, kita perlulah sentiasa menggunakan bahasa-bahasa yang mana kanak-kanak kecil ini faham untuk membolehkan ia dapat memahami dan seronok berbual dengan kita sebagai parent. How your baby respond when you communicate? So bagaimana agaknya baby itu memberi respons semasa kita berbual dengan individu ataupun baby tersebut? Responnya mungkin kepada apabila kita bercakap, kita senyum. Kanak-kanak akan merasa seronok apabila kita berbual dengannya dengan senyuman. Selain dari senyuman ialah sentuhan. Ya, bila kita bercakap dengan anak kita senyum, kita sentuh. Dengan kata lain, kita meluk dia semasa dia menyebut sesuatu perkataan. Di samping itu juga, mungkin kita memuji dia. Ya, anak mak pandai. So, dengan cara ini akan menggalakkan kanak-kanak itu berkomunikasi. So biasanya kanak-kanak itu akan cuba mendengar, dia akan cuba meniru apakah sound ataupun bunyian yang datang daripada parent, daripada ibu bapa, dan juga ekspresi muka, yang mana ekspresi muka ini akan memberi satu sentuhan kepada kanak-kanak itu. Kalau misalnya kita berbual dengan anak-anak dan kita senyum, anak itu akan merasa gembira, maknanya menunjuk penerimaan. Tapi kalau kita berbual dengan anak-anak dengan menunjuk muka masam, mungkin anak itu merasakan kita tak menerimanya, kita tak seronok dengannya. Ya. So sebagai parent, kita berharapkan setiap kali kita berbual dengan anak-anak, terutamanya anak yang di peringkat umur bawah, kita haruslah menyertai dengan satu senyuman, pelukan dan perkataan-perkataan yang mudah kanak-kanak itu faham. So apa yang kita boleh buat? Kita bercakap dengan anak kita hari-hari ya untuk perkembangan literasi mereka. Anything ya, kita boleh cakap misalnya, mari jemput makan, mari kita basuh tangan, ataupun makanan ini sedap dah. Kita cuba createkan satu situasi di mana kita boleh misalnya sentiasa berbual dengan anak-anak. Jadi perbualan ataupun komunikasi itu merupakan satu faktor yang penting untuk perkembangan literasi kanak-kanak tadi ya. Seterusnya, selain pada perbualan itu, kita juga boleh berkongsi cerita dengan anak-anak. Bukan hanya berdasarkan buku, tapi berdasarkan pengalaman. Mungkin kita boleh ceritakan tentang cerita sang kancil ke, cerita sang kancil yang bijak, cerita burung ke, bagaimana burung tu mendapat minuman dan sebagainya ya. Dengan berkongsikan cerita ini akan membuatkan kanak-kanak itu rasa gembira dan secara tak langsung literasinya juga turut meningkat. So kita juga memberi emphasis kepada bahagian-bahagian perkataan ya. Misalnya kalau anak itu menyebut mama. Jadi walaupun dia sebut ma saja, tapi kita sentiasa menyatakan dah pandai anak mama yang sebut mama. Ataupun ibu, mungkin anak itu hanya sebut bu. Ataupun i ke, u ke, bunyilah sikit-sikit ya. Tetapi sebagai seorang parents, terutamanya ibu, kita selalu memuji ya. Anak mama pandai, dah pandai sebut ibu. Walaupun sebutannya itu belum jelas dan kadang-kadang tidak sama seperti mana yang kita mahu. Dan selain pada itu juga, ya, sebagai parent, kita harus mendengar. Ya, mendengar merupakan satu perkara yang penting ya. Terutamanya apabila kita berbual dengan anak-anak. So bagaimana kita mendengar? Ya, kita mendengar anak itu. Dan bila dia bercakap, kita haruslah melihat mukanya. Kita teliti mukanya. Ya, bagaimana dia menceritakan sesuatu. Jadi dengan mendengar itu, maknanya anak itu akan merasa disayangi. Hanya dengan cara kita memberi perhatian. Kita tengok pada anak itu. Bagaimana dia cakap. Ini mungkin kita kata anak mama pandai ya. Listen to your child. At the same time kita cuba dengar apa yang dia ingin cakap. Dengan cara mendengar ini akan membuatkan literasi kanak-kanak itu akan meningkat. Selain pada itu juga kadang-kadang kanak-kanak ini untuk meningkatkan literasinya, kadang-kadang kanak-kanak dia menyebut sesuatu perkataan itu tidak tepat. Ya, jadi sebagai ibu, sebagai parent, walaupun misalnya dia kata nak makan, saya sebut di sini spaghetti, tapi kita tahu sebagai parent yang apa yang dimaksudkannya ialah spaghetti. Jadi saya kata mama, anak mama dah pandai ya, kita nak makan spaghetti. Jadi dengan ini secara tak langsung juga literasinya akan meningkat. Maknanya kita cuba menyebut sesuatu dengan pronunciation yang baik. Walaupun anak itu hanya menyebut separuh. Ya, kita sudah faham bahawa apa yang anak itu akan sebut. Dan dengan galakan ini anak itu akan terus misalnya berkomunikasi, bercakap, menyebut kataan itu. Sebab kita memberi satu peneguhan. Kita menyatakan bahawa pandai anak mama, bijak anak mama, walaupun sebutannya tidak betul. Selain daripada berkomunikasi, sebagai parent juga, untuk membantu perkembangan literasi, kita perlulah membaca. Ya, membaca dengan anak-anak itu satu perkara yang penting. Walaupun bacaan itu tidak misalnya dipahami, tapi kita cuba membaca. Sebagai parent, kita perlulah membaca buku-buku yang ringan, yang mana menyeronokkan anak-anak. Sebab apabila kita membaca dengan anak misalnya, kita akan membentuk satu asas kepada literasi. Misalnya kita banyak buku-buku kanak-kanak sekarang ya. Kita membaca buku-buku yang menjadikan contoh. Misalnya anak yang baik, anak yang rajin, anak yang dengar kata ibu bapa. Jadi ini cara membaca ini secara tak langsung kita akan mempromotkan bonding ataupun ikatan dengan di antara kita dengan anak tadi. Selain daripada mempromosikan ataupun meningkatkan perkembangan literasi. So kita lihat di sini, apabila kita membaca buku pada anak, bukan hanya dia memberi keseronokan, tetapi at the same time, maknanya dia akan mendapat maklumat pada buku tadi. Seperti mana yang saya sebut tadi awal, mungkin buku kanak-kanak misalnya yang menjadi keseronokan itu, buku sebab dia banyak berwarna ya. Kebanyakan buku ada gambar, ada warna. Jadi kanak-kanak ni seronok. Misalnya menunjukkan seorang budak perempuan yang mana sama dengan anak kita, namanya Halimah. Jadi Halimah merupakan budak baik. Jadi kita lihat apakah tingkah laku yang baik ini. Ini maknanya memberi satu keseronokan dan maklumat kepada anak kita juga. Ya. Dan selain pada itu, mungkin juga daripada buku, anak-anak ini dapat melihat apakah bahasa yang sedang dinyatakan dalam buku itu. Mungkin bahasa yang betul, saya ingin makan dan sebagainya. Di samping itu, anak-anak juga akan mengembangkan tata bahasanya. Sebab daripada buku tadi, banyak tata-tata bahasa baru yang dipelajari. Ya, walaupun tak familiar ya. Mungkin kita kata dia sudah pandai. Pandai mungkin perkara yang biasa. Ya, mungkin selain daripada itu, dia sudah pandai membaca buku, sudah pandai kata 1, 2, 3. Ini akan mengembangkan lagi tata bahasa kanak-kanak tadi. Dan selain daripada itu, ia juga bila baca, kita dapat membantu anak-anak ini membuat sesuatu problem solving skill. Misalnya contoh, bagaimana nak menyusun buku dalam almari. Ini adalah satu problem skill ya, problem solving skill. Walaupun perkara ini agak mudah, tetapi ia merupakan satu keseronokan. Jadi apabila anak itu misalnya menyimpan buku dalam almari, mungkin ibu boleh kata dah pandai anak mama, tapi baru 2 buku. Tapi kita lihat ya, dengan galakan itu, anak-anak itu akan improve atau menambah baikkan lagi skill untuk menyelesaikan masalah ya. So di samping itu juga mungkin kita nyatakan tentang konsep-konsep baru. Semasa membaca buku itu, hasil daripada buku yang kita baca tadi. So, apa yang kita boleh buat? So, semasa baca buku dengan anak-anak, kita cuba cari buku yang berwarna-warni dan kita boleh lihat di antara satu buku dengan satu buku muka surat yang lain. Dan kita minta anak kita itu pegang buku itu. Lihat ya, misalnya, oh ni gambar bunga ya, cuba tengok bunga ni, cuba pegang bunga ini. Apa warnanya. So dengan cara ini kita menggalakkan anak itu membaca, at the same time meningkatkan literasinya ya. And then kita juga menggalakkan anak itu memegang buku. Ya, sebab kadang-kadang anak-anak dia pegang buku terbalik. Ya, kita make sure, kita kata pegang macam ni. Sebaiknya dia pegang dengan betul. Mungkin sebagai ibu kita kata anak mamak pandai ya, walau baru pegang buku. Sebab dengan ini akan menggalakkan anak itu terus suka melihat pada buku dan seterusnya boleh membaca. Ya. Kemudian kita akan tunjuk. Kita jangan hanya baca misalnya ini bunga ros. Tapi kita tunjukkan tangan dan cuba pegang tangannya. Ini bunga ros. Dan kalau baiknya kita bawa juga bunga ros. Ini bunga ros. Supaya dia dapat memahami apa yang kita nyatakan sebagai bunga ros. Ya, maknanya pembelajaran juga berlaku, literasi juga akan meningkat. Dia akan tahu bunga ros dan apa dia bunga ros. Kemudian juga kita akan melihat kepada gambar-gambar. Selalunya untuk anak-anak lebih sesuai kita beli buku yang bergambar. Ya, yang ada penuh dengan gambar dan warna-warni. Ini akan membolehkan anak itu senang memahami, senang mengingati, senang memahami dan mengetahui apa sebenarnya. Ya, kalau bunga, ada gambar bunga. Kalau kucing, ada gambar kucing. Ini akan menggalakkan anak itu terus belajar dan meningkatkan literasinya. Ya. Kemudian mungkin pada peringkat yang sama juga, selain menunjukkan gambar, kita boleh juga memperlihatkan bunyian. Misalnya kucing ya. Macam mana bunyi kucing ya? Kalau anak tu tak pandai buat, kucing macam mana bunyi, mungkin kita kata miau, miau. Sekejap lagi dia akan menyatakan. Jadi dengan cara itu dia akan merasa seronok untuk mempelajari sesuatu sebab bila dia baca buku bersama ibu bapa. Seandainya anak itu membaca buku seorang, sudah tentu perkara-perkara ini dia tak suka sebab tak ada sesuatu yang boleh mempengaruhinya dalam melihat objek-objek tertentu dalam buku itu. Dan sudah tentu kurang keseronokan. Jadi ibu bapa boleh memainkan peranan yang penting untuk meningkatkan literasi ini, maknanya semasa membaca, kita cuba terangkan gambar tersebut dan kita cuba juga misalnya membunyikan, mengikut binatang-binatang ataupun benda-benda yang ada di situ. Dan seterusnya juga untuk menggalakkan anak itu terus bercakap, berbual dan sebagainya, kita gunalah soalan terbuka. Misalnya dalam cerita tadi, apa yang adik dapat lihat? Supaya menggalakkan pemikiran, anak itu berfikir. Siapa yang pukul abangnya tadi? Walaupun jawapannya salah, kita kata okey. Cuba kita tengok sekali lagi dalam pergaduhan ini, siapa yang buat salah? Dengan menggunakan soalan terbuka ini, anak itu akan merasa lebih seronok dan literasinya juga akan berkembang. Saya rasa berdasarkan apa yang kita bincang tadi, sememangnya keluarga ataupun parent memainkan peranan yang penting dalam perkembangan literasi kanak-kanak. Ya, sebab ibu bapa merupakan guru yang pertama sebelum anak-anak itu pergi ke sekolah. Sekian, terima kasih. Semoga apa yang kita kongsikan di sini dapat kita lihat sejauh mana kita dapat memilitasikan keadaan-keadaan ini.
Thank you very much, Yang Berbahagia Professor, Associate Professor Fatimah Yusooff, Dr. Fatimah Yusooff. Can we take the questions from the audience? You can also post the question on the forum, as in the chat box. And those we also screening this program live on YouTube. So there are questions from there we'll also address. Yes, sure, Dr. David.
They can also use the hand.
Yeah. Class. Thank you, Dr. David. Dr. Fatimah, would you like to address the question?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thiru. The question is, I think it depends on the age of the student in the class, no? Dr. David kata apa ya? I don't really get what Dr. David want to ask, no?
His question is about whether, he says that social class plays a crucial role in literacy of children. Yeah. He wants to know whether there are parties in Malaysia that are addressing the issue.
I'm not sure about this, no? Because kalau guru, I think they will know better.
I see. Maybe somebody from the early childhood would know, for the young children, in sense of young children. I'm not sure if anyone else would like to add on to this.
Can I add on?
Sure,
please?
sure, Dr. Raziana.
Yeah, okay. I'm Raziana here. Okay, to talk about the different, this is what we call differentiated learning. Every child has different background in their experience, yeah. So it's up to the teacher's creativity in promoting and create engagement learning to promote the literacy among children. Yeah, it's not. It is a very challenging time for the teachers, but there is a limitation for everything. But if it is done correctly, I'm very sure, regardless of their background, they can do that. And it depends on how, perhaps they, this is where the collaborative and cooperative learning comes into the picture.
Yes,
So
I think
again,
that's
in the
what
classroom, they
Mhm.
need to provide this scenario.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Raziana.
I think as the question, what the teachers do is one thing, but I think what he would like, I think the question refers to if there's a specific party as an NGO or government agency that are addressing these issues. I guess maybe another time, Dr. Fatimah, if you can revert to him, that would be okay. There's another question from Nur Husna. Wujudkah perbezaan di antara peranan ibu dan peranan bapa dalam mempromosikan pembangunan literasi?
Thank you, Dr. Tiru. Terima kasih Husna for the question. I think both parent, ibu dan bapa memainkan peranan yang penting. But as we know, ibu selalu bersama anak-anak. I think kalau dilihat dari sudut ini, maknanya peranan ibu tu lebih penting. So in actual case, I think both parent, husband and wife should play important roles dalam literasi.
Thank you, Dr. Fatimah. There's also a question, from the Hazidi. Literacy development is often discussed in terms of pedagogy. What about in andrological context? Well, it is discussed because there is a lot of movement to promote literacy in terms of for adults. Yeah, Dr. Fatimah, you want to answer that?
I think I would like to request Dr. Rosina. Can you help me?
Thank you for giving me the trust. We are just next to each other. All right.
Okay.
Pedagogy is actually involve the children, context. Where andragogy involved for those who are not aware of this word with adult learners. However, for andragogical is still the problem with our approach. Normally, we want. I heard a lot of through my experience. We do not encourage the individual to listen more rather than just giving. It's a one-way street, in fact, of finding what actually they want to express. The expression to encouragement to express their idea is lacking. You listen to what I say and answer exactly what I wanted to answer. So that is in terms of the approach in adults learners. So again, it is up to the experience of the instructors, in our case, in online learning. So we should encourage in many ways using different technique and strategies to encourage our learners to speak. Even now, just sharing with our doctorate in education, it's very hard for me to get, the two-way communication to encourage literacy. In terms of, I'm talking about communication. That's all. Thank you. I hope I answered that question by AP Azidi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Razina.
Thank you, Dr. Prof.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, if we don't have any questions, we can move to the next speaker. But I'd like to just wrap up this particular sessions in the sense that these questions that we talked about, OUM would like to play a bigger role in terms of the literacy development, particularly under the new leadership that we have. We had our president earlier. So hopefully we can make a difference in terms of the literacy development in the context of andrological. And also one of the things we do try to embed in all our programs now is that we like the programs, whatever material that we produce. Of course, at the moment is largely to our students, But literacy is somewhere where we feel that we can open up to the public, and this is something we like to do. And ideally, it should reach out to all social classes. So let's hope we can do our part in sort of reducing the disparity in terms of literacy. So thank you. Without much ado, now we will go to the second topic, where we have Dr. Harvindar, who will discuss on the topic Malaysian students' poor command of English language. Where have we gone wrong? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harvindar Kaur, Senior Lecturer from the Faculty of Education and Social Sciences, Open University, Malaysia. Today I'd like to share with you a grave concern among Malaysians, our Malaysian students' English language proficiency. But before that, let me just enlighten you on what we mean by English language literacy. In a layman term, English language literacy would be the mastery of 4 crucial English language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So upon the mastery of 4 these English language components, we call a person English language literate, provided that the person has mastered these 4 skills appropriately. Okay, so coming back to the topic, where have we gone wrong in terms of our Malaysian students' poor command of the English language? Let's look at the history of how the language actually developed and then declined. We started off during British colonization. We had missionary schools. In missionary schools, English was the medium of instruction because in those schools then, the British wanted to propagate Christianity. So English was used to convey religious messages. However, after that, after we achieved independence, we fought for the local language to be given the most emphasis. So in that manner, Malay language became the official language of the country. And national schools instead of missionary schools were introduced. This was the beginning of the decline. The native speakers had begun to leave. So missionary schools were taken over by Malaysians. So that was the start of the decline. But still, English language back then was stronger. And then we had movements where people started protesting against the use of English language for official affairs. That was when English language standard became second to the national language, because we wanted to prioritize the national language. So the national language, Malay language, became the official language of the country, and English thereafter became the second language of the nation. Now, the problem is we have 12-year education in schools where we teach our students English. They learn English for 12 long years, but they have still not mastered the language. The moment they leave school at Form 5 or at Form 6, they still have those difficulties speaking, reading, writing English. They can read, but they can't speak well. They can read, they can comprehend, but they can't write well. So now with numerous efforts from the Ministry of Education, including the Malaysian Blueprint, we find that most Malaysian students still have a very poor grasp of the English language. We have a few issues that surround students' English language proficiency. We don't blame the students, but the circumstances that surround them. Research has proven that students lack confidence to learn English. Now, I would like to share with you my personal experience. I was teaching in a semi-private university. I taught there for 11 and a half years. So in that university, I met a few students, our local Malay students. I was speaking to them and I asked them, I conducted an interview with them, and I asked them, I said, what actually is the problem? Why is it that you don't like speaking English? They said, when we speak English, the people around us think that we are trying to show off. And then they say, when we go home, we learn English in your class, but when we go home, no one speaks English to us. Our parents do not like encouraging us. So when I asked why, they said because that is the language of the British. I mean, yes, I do agree with them that we are a British colony, but then the British have left. The thing is, they are no longer in the country, but this language has become an international language. So if you don't learn this language, it's your loss. Then they told me, they said, sometimes we want to practice, we want to speak, but then we are so worried people around us might laugh at us if we make mistakes. So these were issues that surrounded them. And then now, they are still surrounding our students. And today, we are talking about low employment rates among our graduates. They fail at interviews. They miserably fail at interviews because they cannot speak English well. I'm not saying all interviews, but interviews that require English language could be a bit tough for them. And we have quite a high rate of failure in major English exams, especially in SPM. Now, where have we gone wrong? What actually is the problem? Let's see. Now, the first thing is attitude to teaching and learning. We have to change our mindset. If you think it is the language of the British, the language of the invaders, you can never go far in life. Because like it or not, it is now an international language. Attitude to teaching and learning. I have this one personal experience at school when I was teaching the weakest class. I was doing my professional practice at that school. And I was teaching them literature component. So I was wondering, the students were just staring very blank. They were giving me blank stares. I was broken because I felt really sad looking at those kids, you know. It's like they have a future ahead, but you are not helping them build the future. So this is the attitude you need to change. You have to do something about it. And then sometimes some students come from very poor economic backgrounds. Their parents can't afford education. Their parents can't afford to buy them books, especially those who live in rural areas. So this is one of the barriers. When they can't afford, they can't send their children to school. In that case, it may not be their perception of English, but it's more of their socioeconomic background. You know, if some parents, even in rural areas, do appreciate education, they know that they have gone through hard times in life and they do not want their children to, to face the life they faced before. So they want their kids to be educated because they can't do much due to their socioeconomic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds. So the influence of the surroundings, if you live in this kind of surroundings that does not encourage you, you will not be able to develop your language skills. We also face a shortage of trained teachers in school. School principals usually would ask teachers who are not specialized in the language to teach them language, to teach students language. A maths teacher can be asked to teach language, and a language teacher can be asked to teach mathematics. This is not right. We have to nip this problem in the bud. We cannot continue with this because teachers whose forte is not English would end up teaching students the wrong things, and students would not learn. This comes with a lack of competence. When English is not your forte and you are asked to teach the language, how do you expect students to excel? Your environment. If the people around you speak English with you, they encourage you, they motivate you, you'd learn better. But if they don't, if they have the mentality that English is not important, we can survive without the language, then you will not be able to develop the language skills. Lack of emphasis on the language from the side of the parents, from the side of teachers. Sometimes teachers come, they teach, but they don't tell you the importance of the language. You may have friends around you who may laugh at you when you speak English. No one explains to you the emphasis. We have in this country ministers like, with due respect, Datuk Sri Anwar, we have Datuk Sri Najib, we have Khairi, Jamaludin, we have Tun Dr. Mehedhar, who can really speak English very well. They are good role models. In this case, you know, I mean, we're not talking about politics, but we are talking about famous figures who can really influence people's speaking skills. And I too was inspired by these people when I was at school. So that's how I explored the language. In school, teachers are very, they have to be, we cannot blame them. They have to rely on textbooks because there are syllabus requirements that they have to meet. So heavy reliance on textbooks makes it so difficult for students to learn something out of the textbook. English is not confined to the textbook. You cannot rely on textbooks just to learn a language. English is beyond a textbook, beyond the square walls of the classroom. So what can we do about this? Parents can play a role. They can encourage their children, they can support them. They may not be financially stable, but the most they can do is encourage their children. Never mind, I am living a difficult life. I do not want you to live a difficult life. If by mastering the language you can secure a better job with a higher pay, then go for it. Encourage your children. Appropriate learning environment at home. If you can afford, get your children books, storybooks. You know, you start young with nursery rhymes, if you can afford. If you can't afford, never mind. There will be other avenues we can explore. But let's talk about encouraging your kid. Synergy between parents and teachers. If you think you cannot afford, there is nothing much you can do for your kid because of your social and economic circumstances, you can always talk to your teachers. You tell them, I want my child to learn language. I want my child to learn English because I am not literate. I want my child to be a better person. Who knows, with this kind of message, schools might do something about it. How can teachers play a role? The first thing, avoid translation in the classroom. There are alternatives. When I observed teachers during my master's dissertation, I noticed that they translated English into Malay language so frequently until they did not use English at all. They explained all terms in Malay. The students are already good in Malay language. But if you keep teaching them language using Malay language, they won't learn. There are many ways in TESOL methodology, in English methodology, to make them understand. Enhance your own literacy skills. Not all English teachers, sorry to say, not all English teachers at school are competent. Some themselves have poor literacy skills, English literacy skills. They themselves have to, you know, work for the enhancement of the language. We can't help them much. The school and the ministry has to do something about it. Reward your students who perform well. If they speak English today, reward them. Give them something. I'm not talking about money. You can give them chocolates. You can give them candies. Motivate them because they spoke English today. Okay, reward them. Praise them. At least they would be motivated to learn. Change your own perception of the language. Until you don't change your mindset, until you don't change your perception of things, your students won't change. And then create the environment. You can create the environment yourself. You can get them to speak. You can get them to listen. You can conduct various activities with them. And if you think all else fails, communicate with their parents. If they are not focusing in the class, there is something the parents can do. And schools too can do their bit. Organize more language activities, assign only specialized teachers who are specialized in the field of English to teach English, and encourage teachers to place more emphasis on communicative syllabus than traditional syllabus. And if you encourage teachers to join and attend training sessions organized by the ministry, then perhaps your teachers too can work towards their development of English language skills. And reward students who show improvement in annual school events. Perhaps you could reward them, give them prizes Okay, and same goes with the ministry. Please recruit competent English language teachers, conduct more training sessions, organize more competitions at national levels, and change English language syllabus, and if can, for the hardcore poor, provide them assistance, provide them financial assistance. They need this. So this is the end of my presentation, but before we go, give your students the conditions, the environment. This is what Albert Einstein says. I never teach my pupils. I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. So if you're a teacher, provide them with the environment, the conditions. They need that. So with that thought, thank you very much. That's all from me. And I hope today's presentation will benefit you and your students. Thank you.
What's happening?
Dr.
Tiro, on your mic, please, Dr. Tiro.
Okay, Doctor.
You can speak. Okay, hi. Sorry, there's a bit of a technical problem with the mic. Thank you to Dr. Harvindar. That was a really interesting presentation, a heartfelt one. Any questions? And I would encourage everyone to just ask the question live, then we can actually have a dialogue. Any questions?
I have a question. Can I ask?
She's smiling.
Hello?
Yes,
Maybe
yes. Hi,
Dr.
sure.
Would like to add on your own views.
Yeah,
If you'd like to share your.
this is something I've observed, you see, we teachers, like we have this assumption.
I actually thought there will be a lot more questions for English language.
Yeah, can you hear me? Where was I? Oh yeah, I observed that.
Hasidi, are you saying something? We can't really hear you.
Yes, I mean.
Okay.
We can hear him. We can hear him.
Okay.
Okay.
The where was I? Sorry. From my hello, what's happening here? There's a feedback. Hello. There's a feedback somewhere. Right. Okay. There's a.
What's happening?
Where's that feedback coming from? Hello.
Should I talk?
I think from Aisha, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What was I saying? Yeah. All right. Okay. From my observation, I noticed that why we often say that that Malaysians don't speak English as much before. I think today the problem isn't so much that less people speak English, but more people speak less English. So, I noticed that from my where we go when you interact with people, is that let me give an example. At a petrol station once, there was an English guy who had some car problems, and he was asking the staff at this petrol station in Lipis for help. So when I got there, he was going on and on in English asking for help. No, they didn't answer him. So when I came in, I asked. It's not that, and I learned that it's not that they did not answer. They did not understand him. They did. It's just that they don't have the confidence to speak to the guy in English, so they didn't answer him. So in this case, the question isn't so much that they don't know how to use the language; it's that the confidence and the to speak isn't there. So I think that's the that's a big issue there, right? Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Harvindar.
I'm wondering when to speak more of I'm wondering, is it because we only have one English subject in the whole school system, and that is the reason? Because before that, during the MCE time, the subjects were taught in English, so the mastery in the language is much more higher. So I'm wondering, is it enough just to have one English language subject as the medium to learn as the second language in the country? So
That's also
I think the one, Dr. Harvindar, I think having just one subject, students can't cope with it. If you have 2 or 3, I think they're going to collapse.
There's a question from Mahani, Dr. Mahani.
Okay.
Dr. Mahani, you want
Yes.
to ask your question? Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Experience and good educator. I realized that in preschools, most of the teachers, when they get the children, they focus mainly on reading and writing. The focus is never on listening and speaking. Even when I went there to do my research, the teachers don't even know the meaning of listening comprehension skills. And because listening is a basic, if you don't listen to good language, you cannot speak well, you cannot write well. So I think that's one of the main reasons why our children are having that problem. Another reason is because our teachers are all teaching this all subjects when you look at preschools, and even though they don't have a minimum requirement or for English, they still teach the language. So I think that could be one of the problems. What is your opinion?
Okay. Addressing the questions in like Rinda asked just now, actually, yes, we unfortunately have only one subject of English language in school, in which we teach them reading, writing, speaking, listening, and even literature. What we can do is, despite having only one English subject in school, we can vary the activities. Now it all boils down to the role of the teacher, because some parents are not able to provide students with the environment they need at home because they are used to their mother tongue. They're used to speaking their mother tongue with the students. It is not easy for parents to suddenly switch to English just because their students are learning English at school. So probably what we can do is we can encourage our teachers to vary the activities. Although we have only one subject, English subject, we can vary English language activities. In teaching methodology, we are taught how to vary our activities to engage our learners. So it all boils down to the role of the teacher. So coming back to the question, I think it's sufficient to have one subject, English language subject, but maybe we could use mixed instructions at school. We could use English as well as BM so that students would be able to familiarize themselves with both languages. So maybe there are some policy changes we could try and propose. Thank you, Dr. Harvindar. And then Dr. Mahani, coming back to Dr. Mahani's question and Dr. Mahani's concern. Yes, just like AP Haziri has mentioned, it has to do with the confidence of the teachers. Not all teachers are actually qualified to teach English. But then when they have to teach in preschool, they are expected to have the basic literacy skills, the numeracy skills, English language skills to teach kids. Still, it is very important, like Dr. Mahani said, for kids to learn at a young age. So the foundation has to be really very strong. I agree that teachers have to have a sufficient mastery of the language so that the students start off on the right foot and they start learning language at the right time, and they start learning the language right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahani. Yes, Dr. Rosli.
Okay, thank you very much to Dr. Harvindar. Very interesting presentation, and a few things in Malay College during my A levels. The teacher was very good in terms of so-called teaching us writing, and as I compared to local teachers when they mark the assignments, the essay part, for the British English, for British teacher, they will underline the mistakes and they put number 1. So at the end of the essay, they put number 1 and they give a reason why we made mistake, you know. So, but as compared to local teachers, I don't think that they have time to do it to the extent, and then we didn't know what mistake we have done for that. Yeah. So I think I learned a lot of things from the way how they mark the essay. And one more thing, I also have a preschool. Which we use English as a medium of instruction, but the problem is the parents at home, they do not actually promote the language. You know, they expect the children speak very good grammar and everything, because the language is not like history. You just read it and then you can remember. It's a long time, it's a long process, you know. But the parents so adamant that, you know, once they send to the preschool, the children will be able to speak, you know, as they expect, but they don't speak at home. So yeah, I think there is some issues, you know, on that. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question on the chat from Nozalina. Dr. Harvindar, can you read that, or do you want me to read it out?
Yes, I agree on the confidence of the person. Many children are shy to speak English. Some of them fear of rejection. They have the fear of rejection, even being laughed. Yes, the best way to help these issues. This is actually the same concern my students brought up during the interview. They said, bila kami bercakap bahasa Inggeris, orang kata kami bermata biru. You know, we have blue eyes, kami bermata biru. So bila kami bercakap, mereka gelak. Now, this has to do with the student's mentality and where the student is coming from. If you have this set of mentality where you say that ini bahasa penjajah, you know, this is the language of the invaders, that is already your mindset. Now, we can't change people's mindset, but we as teachers, okay, what we can do to curb this problem is we can address the problems of these students. Again, it is the role of the teacher and the school. You promote the language at school, you force them. Now, when my previous workplace, they were university students, but they were reluctant to speak English. They were shy. So I had to use stick over carrot, and I told them, okay, now it's like this. You do not, maybe we can use this as one of the approaches. I said, okay, you refuse to speak English because of various perspectives you have. Now in this class, like it or not, since it's an English class, do I speak English? You're going to, I knew that they had financial constraints because they were students. So I said, you're going to pay me RM1 per offense. For every offense, as in, if you do not speak English, you speak any other language, Japanese, Chinese, Tamil, any language, but not English, you pay me RM1. Then they said, oh lah, cikgu, RM1. I said, RM1. That money we will collect. At the end of the semester, we will throw a party. So at the end of the semester, we managed to collect around, some of them purposely spoke in another language, so I would, you know, penalize them just because they wanted, you know, to have a party at the end of the semester. But at the end of the semester, they were English. I spoke to them. I said, you have to change your perception. English is very important. You cannot say ni bahasa penjajah and then you do not want to talk. Tak boleh macam tu. Kita kena berubah. Kalau kita tak berubah, esok when we go to another place of work, we feel at interviews kita yang rugi. So slowly the message sank in. You have to talk to them. Okay, yes, AP. Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, AP Hazidi.
Oh, sorry. I'm just would like to add, I just want to add to share something I learned from a group of people who were working with the Islamic authorities. So what they were doing is they were promoting English, but they're using like an ESP approach. So they say English, they're using it English for da'wah purposes. So I thought it was like a good idea because what they did was they got a group of people who were actually very much against English to actually learn English because of that. Yes, thank you.
Dr. Harvindar, I think in line with what we have discussed here, there is a comment I like to read from Valley, from the public. She agrees that her whole life as a learner in Malaysian schools, up to university level, she's been given educators with poor English literacy. And so they just pass the work and ask us to study ourselves. So what she's concluding is that the problem isn't so much with students, but is the recruitment of teachers. But I think the problem is has multi-dimensional issue. So I like to read what Sarah Hajar Balkis has posted. Language learning continues beyond formal education to formal class. It is up to us to better ourselves. I think taking responsibility for learning and improving your English is the way to go instead of, complaining. Hand it back to you. Dr. Harvindar, you have any comments to end this Q&A session?
Yes, I would like to thank those who commented. Actually, yes, they are right. But the responsibility lies with 4 entities: the teacher, the school, the parents, and then the student. I think all of them have to play a role. It is not fair for us to say that teachers should show students alone. Everybody has to, it is a joint effort. Everyone has to collaborate. If we do not collaborate and we do not, we do not emphasize the language, we will not be able to improve on the language. For all the comments. If you have any other question.
I think that's just a comment from Nurzalina. She shared her parents instilled the motto, speak English, even if it's broken English, you will learn through times. That's a very good, I think, comment for to end the session. Now, thank you so much, Dr. Harvindar. So from English literacy, we're now going to move into numeracy. So we have Dr. Raziana, who will discuss the topic on the adult numeracy.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I am Raziana Aziz from Faculty of Technology and Applied Sciences. In this session, I will share on the adult numeracy. Numeracy and the pandemic. Numeracy is a rich and multifaceted construct. A number of everyday tasks relate to numeracy domains and require diverse mathematical and statistical skills. Numeracy is defined as the ability to access, use, interpret, and communicate mathematical information and ideas in order to engage in and manage the mathematical demands of a range of situations in adult life. Recent changes in the world of work, such as job growth in the information and service sectors, mean that workers need adequate numeracy skills to adapt to a changing job market. Numeracy competency is also linked to important aspects of individual well-being, such as health and active citizenship. The importance of numeracy skills has been highlighted further during the COVID-19 pandemic. The public ability to comprehend critically the large volume of statistical information and projections circulated via media channels become vital to the success of national policies aimed at reducing infection levels and easing the social and economic consequences of the pandemic. This figure visualizes the process of conceptual development over time, and it is based on the materials developed in the Erasmus Plus project on the Common European Numeracy Framework. Maguire and O'Donnell in 2003 developed an organizing framework which considers the development of the concept of numeracy as a continuum with three merging phases: formative, mathematical, and integrative. The phases represent an incrementally increasing degree of sophistication in conceptualization. It starts from a very limited concept of numeracy, where it is considered as basic arithmetic skills. This framework then moves through to a concept of numeracy as being mathematics in concept that recognizes the importance of making explicit the significance of mathematics in daily life. In the integrative phase, the continuum culminates in a conceptualization which views numeracy as a complex, multifaceted, sophisticated construct incorporating the mathematics, communication, cultural, social, emotional, and personal aspects of each individual in context. Numeracy in the adult population is a skill that supports the life of all citizens and contributes to the development of job markets, economies, and societies around the globe. Numeracy is therefore included in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) as a separate target area in Indicator 4.6.1. The importance of numeracy is often overlooked by policymakers, both in terms of numeracy education for adults and in school, and monitoring of skills level by credible direct assessment. UNESCO considered numeracy as part of basic skills, sometimes described as arithmetic or computation within literacy. Most countries lack data on the numeracy skills and practices of their citizens. Building adult numeracy skills is key for citizens' well-being and active participation in modern society. It contributes to significant economic and social outcomes. Insufficient data on adult skills in general and on numeracy in particular remains a serious challenge. SDG Target 4.6 calls on countries to ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy by 2030. Indicator 4.6.1, which tracks this target, measures the proportion of population in a given age group achieving at least a fixed level of proficiency in functional, literacy and numeracy skills by sex. Numeracy skills for the 21st century. Based on the World Economic Forum 2015, students require 16 skills for the 21st century as illustrated in this figure. The gap between the skills people learn and the skills people need is becoming more obvious, as traditional learning falls short of equipping students with the knowledge they need to thrive. Today's job candidates must be able to collaborate, communicate, and solve problems. These skills develop mainly through social and emotional learning. Combined with traditional skills, this social and emotional proficiency will equip students to succeed in the evolving digital economy. This figure illustrates the model for numeracy in the 21st century. A numerate person requires mathematical knowledge, conceptual understanding, and problem-solving skills, positive dispositions such as confidence and flexibility of mind, and the ability to use appropriate mathematical tools, which might be representational, physical, or digital. These attributes must be accessible in a range of different contexts and taken together provide a critical orientation to numeracy that allows citizens to mathematics, evaluate, interpret quantitative, algebraic spatial, or probabilistic information appropriately in complex situations. Numeracy and its domain. Conceptual frameworks and cumulative findings demonstrate the importance of foundational numeracy for 21st century citizens, communities, and economies. It can be described in 5 separate domains. First, civic numeracy relates to citizens' ability to understand and react critically to quantitative and statistical information regarding important societal, economic, environmental issues and how data and statistics serve public policy. Second, digital numeracy is becoming increasingly important in terms of growing public exposure to big data, open data, and the use of algorithms in many digital environments alongside digital literacy. Third, financial and commercial numeracy. This includes the computations and critical evaluation of information involving money, saving, and related risks. Fourth, health numeracy is emerging in an independent field in medical and health sciences research and includes the comprehension of treatment options, risks, and projection alongside health literacy. Fifth domain, workplace numeracy, which encompasses a range of topics such as management, schedule optimization, resources and budgets, along with comprehension of statistics and data on production, quality controls, and customer behavior to compete in an evolving job market. Tasks undertaken in all of the above contexts require a wide range of basics and advanced numeracy and critical thinking skills, including many skills not subsumed in school mathematics. Numeracy findings from research and challenges. Only about 20% of the world's countries have access to data on literacy and numeracy based on direct measurements. GAL in 2016 has reviewed different approaches to assessing adult numeracy at the international level, along with case studies from several countries that have developed direct national numeracy assessments. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, provides an example of how countries can obtain and compare detailed information on adult numeracy levels and literacy skills. Between 2008 and 2019, the program surveyed people aged between 16 and 64 in 39 countries and regions, including 7 non-OECD middle-income countries. The Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competency, PIAAC, is a program of assessment and analysis of adult skills. PIAAC findings suggest that a large percentage of the adult population, 30% to 60% in middle-income countries, and 10 to 40% in high-income countries have low or very low levels of numeracy proficiency. Data collected in several countries through direct assessments conducted at different points in time also suggest that adult numeracy levels are decreasing over time, while literacy skills are improving. Pronounced numeracy gender gap, which is women gradually fall between men in numeracy level compared to a negligible gap in literacy levels. Producing indicator 4.6.1 will require accurate data and direct measures of numeracy. It is distinct from literacy. Numeracy is often overlooked in adult learning and education programs, which tend to focus on school-like math and do not address numeracy's functional and critical roles. Thus, the UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning addressed those challenges would require countries to consider the following measures. 1. Adopt a long-range national strategy that focuses on adult numeracy and involves the use of direct numeracy measures, which is distinct from literacy. 2. Invest in developing national capacity to measure and improve adult numeracy skills. 3. Develop a creative and scalable monitoring approach to fit demographic and linguistic diversity. With that, I end my sharing session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raziana. She's online, so please
Yes.
post your questions and for discussions. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes,
Dr.
Dr. Harvindar.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raziana. So my question is, you have mentioned about cultural context. So I was wondering, how is numeracy is connected to cultural aspects, or in what context?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harvindar, for your questions. Actually, for your information, I'm doing this study in I can say this is my early stage of the study of the numeracy. So I'm gathering all the informations, but based on the slides in the as you can refer on my recording. Based on the numeracy conceptual framework, there will be an intention to make the numeracy as a social practice. That one is it will start from 2000, okay, the year 2000 until 2050. So I'm still I'm still doing some research, Dr. Harvindar. But I think I will answer to you once I got the detail, okay, from the OECD. Actually, I'm referring to OECD, UNESCO, and PIAAC project. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raziana. Thanks.
Any more questions? Any other questions? I don't know how I could add on to the questions because I think it's, as a child, some of us love languages, some of us love numbers, so it's sort of natural inclination. But similar to what I think discussed in the language, English language, yeah.
Yes.
I think here the issue is just some naturally have a fear for numbers. So I think it's called, my mother is one, person who wasn't really keen on numbers, completely opposite to, I'm completely opposite. So how do we sort of encourage those students? My thing with the students is that I always tell them, think of mathematics as a language. It's only a way of expressing the facts. Dr. Raziana, maybe you have a better way of encouraging students.
Okay, encouraging students. We know that in our curriculum, actually, our government has already projected the in NKRA education for program literacy and numeracy sekolah rendah. Okay, it is LINUS, and the government also has embedded the I think the numeracy competency in MQF 2.0. That one is in tertiary education. So and to enhance, or what we can do, enrich the learning of mathematics. Maybe the teacher, the mathematician, need to while teaching for the mathematics per se, let's say for arithmetic, algebra, functions, okay, you may add the application to the real world, or to the daily life experience, so that they will be able to relate to what happening what happening in their daily lives.
Dr. Safia is also here. Would you like to add something? One of the things I would like to ask Dr. Safia is that what would be your advice to lifelong learners who want to explore mathematics on their own and they're a bit afraid? What would be your advice?
Okay, I knew you were gonna get me somehow. But anyway, okay. I normally tell the learners or the students who are not interested in the math anyway, they have to take math here, right? They have to take this my course, the SBMA 1403. Anyhow, I always stress that they need to think of this as you're not, it's not so much about the method itself. They need to think of it as math actually helps people improve in their problem solving skills.
Yeah,
it's actually the problem solving skills that we want to see. Given given this information, given a particular situation, given certain values that you resource or data that you have, what would you do? Right. So I keep telling them they're not, most likely they will not have the same exact situation or same exact question that you see in an exam or in the assignment, but when they're out there working, it boils down to how do you solve the problem, right? How do you solve the problem? And if it involves numbers, then you have to know how to work. You have to have that basic foundation on how to work with numbers, even if it's addition and subtraction. My students, a long time ago, when I was teaching back in the US, their problem was they didn't have, most of them or many of them had problems with the basics. We're talking basics, just even adding, subtracting, working with fractions. Fractions scare them, even decimals. So, if they can get past that hurdle, then they're okay. But back to the emphasis is more on being able to solve a problem. I think that's the main thing. Actually, now, if a person wants to go into higher level math, that's because they're going into a certain engineering or they go into architecture. Then they hone in on the more, they go in depth, they go higher level and whatnot. But for the general public, actually, it's those basic math. That's why I refuse to teach higher level courses. I prefer to go back down to where the problem is. That's where the problem is. People don't know how to add, subtract, multiply, and do basic math. So it's having these skills.
Yes.
When we talk about this, having.
Excellent. Yeah, that's absolutely. That's in fact, Dr. Rosli has commented in the chat, and we were discussing this. Youngsters asking, "Why do I learn maths? What am I going to use it for?"
Yes.
Yeah. So we say it's the thought process. Yeah, development of the thought process. So we are towards the end already. So for the Q&A sessions, Dr. Ras, do you want to wrap up and share your last wisdom on the encouraging people to learn mathematics?
To me, numeracy is in the adult population is a key skill to support the lives of all citizens, and it will contribute to the development of, your job market, economics, and societies. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll take a 10 minutes break and then come back, and then we will focus on the 3 additional literacy skills that are deemed very important in the 21st century skills, particularly information literacy, technology literacy, and media literacy. But you see that we have a different focus. There are 2 sessions here on digital literacies. There are different focuses. One focuses more into digital technology. The other one focuses more on the digital media as a media. So we'll see you again in 10 minutes. Thank you very much for being with us.
Okay, we shall now continue the webinar with the next topic on Library Information Literacy Program before and during COVID-19 pandemic best practices by Encik Shahril Effendi.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I'm Shahril Effendi Ibrahim from OUM Digital Resource Center. My sharing session today is Library Information Literacy Program before and during COVID-19 pandemic best practices. The scope of my sharing paper today is Information Literacy Skill, and then followed by Information Literacy for ODL, and then the essence of the sharing session is Digital Resource Center Information Literacy before and during the pandemic, and finally the future of information literacy. Information literacy skill. Information literacy skill will make a person become information literate. According to American Library Association in year 2000, an information literate person is a person who are able to recognize when information is needed. Then he or she should be able to access the needed information effectively and efficiently. In terms of OUM student, when they have or get their assignment, they should be able to access, to retrieve, to download the information, journal, article, books effectively and efficiently. Then an information literate person should be able to evaluate the information and its sources critically. They should be able to know whether that information is reliable, not biased, and up to date before they can use that information in their respective assignment or project, etc. And finally, the person who are information literate should be able to use that information effectively, ethically, and legally. In terms of OUM student, they should be able to use the information, avoiding plagiarism, and cite the source that they use correctly. Information literacy for ODL. As we all know, ODL as an independent learners. According to Shaken in 2002, information literacy is considered a survival skill for the new century. The key competency for independent study, self-directed learners, and lifelong learning. It's mean here as ODL learners, it is more important for you to be an information literate. Information literacy during the pandemic. The pandemic has reshaped teaching and learning approach in education. New method allow teachers and students to explore more resources in more flexible ways. This is not exempted to OUM Digital Library. Okay, the library has tried to get more resources, more flexible ways to reach the student, to teach the student on information literacy. One of the way is through online teaching. This slide shows you the difference between before the pandemic and during the pandemic for information literacy program by OUM Digital Library. Before the pandemic, we are having face-to-face library training. And during the pandemic, when the online training session, online training platform is widely used, the library has changed to online training that is using Google Meet. In terms of participant, before the pandemic, the participant is very limited to students of main campus and learning center. But during the pandemic, when the Google Meet online training is used, the participant is more wider, open to tutors and staff as well. The number of participants per session, before the pandemic, there are only about 20 to 30 participants per session. But during the pandemic, when we are using online training, the number of participants increased from 80 to 120 participants per session. In terms of number of sessions per semester, before the pandemic, when we are having face-to-face training, there's only limited 8 to 10 sessions per semester, while during the pandemic, when we are having online training, the session is up to 20 sessions per semester. In terms of content, before the pandemic, we only have a general content, how to use the library, how to search for journal, etc. But during the pandemic, when we are having online training, we have a special group session. Some of the students will be on postgraduate learners, and then we have a special session for nursing students, and some special session to Islamic studies students. So they will be more focused on the content of the training. And finally, before the pandemic, the face-to-face training is not recorded. And during the pandemic, we have a recorded session where we will email to the participant on the next day, and also we will place the session, the recorded session, in our portal and website. Okay, this is the image before the pandemic. We have face-to-face training, okay, about 30 to 40 students during the Bengkel Kemahiran Belajar. Okay, we have a very brief content of the training. But during the pandemic, when we have opportunity to have online training, the number of participants increased about 80 to 120 participants per session, and it just takes one librarian and one assistant librarian to moderate the session. In terms of information literacy module, the first part will be library orientation. It will be discussed and show the student how to use the library, how many books the student can borrow, how long they can borrow, etc. The second part will be basic library skill. That is how to search using simple keyword. And then it will be followed by advanced library skill, where a more complicated keyword and searching technique will be shown in this part. And then how to use electronic subject database such as ProQuest, Emerald. Okay, the library will show the student how to use those databases. And then open access databases. The library will show the student how to use an open access databases. And finally, the citation guide on how to cite a particular source from the journal, from the book. Information literacy program workshop. During the first CMO, we only have online information skill workshop. This workshop show in general how to use the library. But after we get feedback from the student after the second semester of the CMO, we also organize clinic kemahiran maklumat or information skill clinic. This clinic limited to 20 students only, and it will discuss specifically on the assignment, how to get resources from a particular assignment, for example. And then during the third semester of the CMO, we get feedback from many students that they want to have a training by a special group of students, for example, from Islamic studies and nursing. So we organize a special OISW to special group of students, namely Islamic studies and also nursing. We also organize online training to postgraduate, where in this content we will discuss and show in details on how to use the library, how to get the information resources from a particular database. And then we also have information skill workshop to tutors, facilitators, and also staff. And finally, we have an online session upon request by a student or staff. In terms of library support and promotion, we have a video guide. All the session will be recorded and will be placed in the survival guide as well in the library portal. We also place the video in YouTube channel from the OEM library, and then we provide a live chat where students can chat with the librarian when they are using the library. We also promote through social media, Telegram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. The library also organizes book review activity where we invite various lecturers to review some books. And finally, we have online quizzes where students are invited to join the quiz based on particular databases. In terms of online information literacy program, we have or get evaluation from the student and feedback from the student. The participants say that they are very satisfied. About 93% say the workshop is good or very good. And they also recommend the library to have more depth on the content of the session. And they also request for more frequent session. They also request for hands-on session where they want to join. They also want to make it compulsory to all learners to join the session. and they also recommend for the library to have a longer session. And finally, the participant would like to have the session for after office hour. In terms of collaboration, the OUM Digital Resource Center collaborate with other databases providers such as ProQuest, JSTOR, and MSCO to provide open access collection. So during this CMO, this database provider provide open access database where students can access the sources freely. Then the library also make a consortium with Malaysian Public University, also known as Perpun, and Ministry of Higher Education in providing resources to My2 and My Journals database. And finally, OUM Digital Resource Center also have a collaborative teaching with UiTM Sungai Petani on APA and MLA citation guide. In the future, OUM Digital Resource Center plan to have a hybrid session where online and face-to-face will come together in the session. The library also plan to have exercise and quizzes during the information literacy program, because we have a feedback that they are not sure whether their level of understanding when they attend the workshop. So the participant would like to have exercise and quizzes during the session itself. And finally, the OUM Digital Resource Center would like to have a rakan perpustakaan, library friend, where we want the student, the users, to be included in the activities by OUM Digital Library. That is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Encik Shahril. That was a very informative presentation. Now I'll open the floor for the questions. You can ask the questions either by audio, video, or by the chat box here. Shahril is here online with us. I must applaud the library, Shahril. The library is doing a wonderful job in promoting information literacy.
Thank you, Rata. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone with any questions? Dr. Raziana has a question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ru. Okay, Encik Shahril, thank you for your support. You always give immediate response to our requests. Thank you so much regarding anything to do with the digital library. However, just want to find out, how do you really reach out? Because to the students, do they actually, just want to find out, do they ask for your help? How many % so far from our thousands of students have reached out for our digital library staff?
Okay, thank you, Rata.
Yes.
Thank you, Rata. I would like to say that the question, the reach for help usually happen during the assignment, when they want to need assignment, right? Usually they ask through chatting and also WhatsApp.
Okay.
So I can say about 10 to 15 questions per day before the assignment, during the assignment time, that I can say. Mostly on chatting, because when they are using the library, there's a chat channel also there. They ask at that time during they are searching for journal, for example.
Okay. Do you actually categorize them, postgrad or under student which reach out for you, please?
We did not categorize by student. We just categorize by type of question. Whether they want to journal or they have a technical question.
Yeah, that include me, because I rarely contact you, Encik Shahril, except when we are upgrading our referencing. I do apologize for that because of our commitment, but that is not an excuse anyway. Anyhow, because I'm asking these questions, because I'm concerned about our EDD student. But I also understand their predicament because being a busy working adult at the same time because they are not full-time student. But anyway, I hope together we will try to encourage students to reach out, and the use of the our digital library. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. In fact, I would like to take this opportunity to promote if any lecturers or academicians would like to have information skill among their student, if their student can arrange one time, for example, so we can have that online information skill.
It's wonderful, Sharif.
Yeah, yes. Because the latest training will be on nursing student. That will be next Friday at 8:30 p.m. Okay, because that's the only time they think that they are suitable to join the training. So we have it at night.
Okay, can you share the date? Maybe I can invite the EDD student to go in, regardless how many will turn up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the nearest one is on nursing student. But
He will, yeah. I think Sharil means that he can arrange a special session because sometimes the databases will differ when you do a specific program, yeah, Sharil?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Thank you.
But maybe since there isn't any questions, generally, what is the status of the information literacy skills among Malaysian public, Sharif? Would you know?
Among Malaysian public, I think internet literacy is very low because Malaysian cannot differentiate between rumors. I can say rumors, especially during the CMO. There's many rumors, so Malaysian is unable to differentiate between rumors, and that's very low for information literacy. I can say that.
So I think it's timely for us to promote information literacy skills. Another subject of interest is also open science. Yeah. So is library are you guys doing anything to promote open science?
At this moment, we don't.
No, okay. Because the movement is rather small in Malaysia.
I see.
I think maybe it's about time. We should jump the wagon as well.
Yeah, we can have a collaboration.
So, any last advice from you on how people can actually improve their own information literacy skills?
They have to reach the library, or library have to reach them. So I hope if we have got some time to organize literacy training, we can take this advantage of Gmeet, Google Meet online training to reach the student. So if academician can suggest a few time for us, for the library to organize the training, so we can do that.
All right.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. This is also part of your promotion already, right?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you very much, Ariel. So without much ado now, we will go into the next topic, which is on digital literacy to the 21st century learners. Yeah, the importance of digital literacy to 21st century learners. This is presented by Encik Rohaizak. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and good morning to all participants. My name is Rohaizak bin Omar from the Center for Linear Affairs. Welcome to the session on digital literacies. In this session, I will share the importance of digital literacy to 21st century learners. But before we go any further, let us look at the definition of digital literacy. If we ask several people what digital literacy is, we may get different answers. However, most of these answers focus on the use of technology, particularly information and communication technologies. And this is not totally wrong, but it is insufficient. American Library Association defines digital literacy as the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, to evaluate, to create, and to communicate information requiring both cognitive and technical skills. If we look at the diagram on the slide, Spirus and Bartlett have categorized digital literacy into 3 different categories, which is more or less similar to the definition by ALA. But what is interesting about the diagram is the emphasis on the importance of critical evaluation. We will look later on why evaluation is an important skill to have. It shows that digital literacy requires not just technical skills, but also cognitive skills. Digital literacy is not about using ICT, but using it effectively and appropriately. Let us go to the first category of digital literacy, that is finding information. According to a survey conducted by the Department of Statistics in 2021, 89.4% of Malaysian internet users use the internet to look up information. This is not surprising, as this is what most of us do, right? However, how do we search for information effectively? That's the key. Yeah? Finding information on the internet is different from finding print text. Our learners need to have the skill to search for information, and to do so, they need to know what information to look for, where to look for it, and how to find it. And this requires them to use a proper keyword in searching for information. They need to also know if the information can be found in electronic books, digital journals, print magazines, or perhaps on a company website. The use of author or title search and the use of Boolean operators like and or is also essential so that searching for information will not take a long time. For those of us who knew the internet 10 or 20 years ago, I think we surely agree that what is available on the internet now is not the same as before. The way information is displayed on the web is also different. Many of the current online resources are highly interactive. For example, in a web display, there may be text, hyperlinks, audio or video clip, animation, and much more. To be digitally literate, we must know how to consume this information in a different forms, in a non-linear way. And before we consume the information, we also need to evaluate the given information to discern facts from misinformation or disinformation, and to determine if the sources we find are trustworthy. I believe that we all agree if I say that most of us are mere consumers of information. Being a digitally literate person requires us not just to consume information, but also to create information or digital content. And to do so, we need the technical skills, as the creation of content needs us to use a range of digital tools effectively and efficiently. Besides technical skills, a digitally literate individual needs to have a critical thinking skills in order to understand his or her audience needs, and also to create content or information that is accurate and true, ethical, and responsible. For example, if we wish to include other people's content, for example, images, we need to follow the Creative Commons licensing to ensure that we do not violate the copyright of the materials. Digital content is generally intended to be communicated with others. That is what we do when we publish our articles, blog posts, or even a tweet. With current technology, it is so much easier to share information with others, and sometimes without even thinking of the consequences. To be a digital citizens, we need to learn how to effectively collaborate and communicate with others. It is one of the key skills to be mastered. We must ensure our learners truly understand the effects of their digital footprint so that they will be cautious and to follow internet etiquette when communicating with other users. I believe at this point, We already know the requirement of becoming a digitally literate learner, which is to be able to effectively and appropriately find, evaluate, create, and communicate information. Now we look into why digital literacy is vital to our learners. There are 3 strong reasons why the university must equip learners with these skills. The first reason is students rely heavily on internet as a major source of information. Based on the ICT Access by Household survey in 2021, 95.5% of Malaysian households access the internet. This shows that more and more of our students are going digital, probably without the proper literacy required. The second reason is due to security. Digital space is not entirely secure. Muniandi 2017 mentioned that Malaysian higher education students are vulnerable to cybersecurity threats. Modern cyber criminals and hackers use increasingly sophisticated means to access to our most sensitive and personal information. One wrong move on social media can lead to hacking, distribution of private photos, and perhaps financial scams. The third reason is about the future job requirement. Digital skills will become a compulsory part of job hiring. According to World Economic Forum, 9 out of 10 jobs in the next decade require digital skills. Based on those 3 reasons, it is crucial to ensure our students have digital literacy skills. A survey conducted by UNICEF on digital literacy among the youth in ASEAN countries found that the challenge in gaining digital literacy is due to a lack of exposure and lack of quality training provided by the institutions. As educators, we need to teach or encourage our learners to learn the know-how of finding, evaluating, creating, and communicating information both technically and cognitively. Besides that, we also need to help our learners understand the responsibilities that come with consuming, creating, and sharing their information in the digital world. Educators must view digital literacy as an ongoing process, not just one educational opportunity. As technology evolves rapidly, our digital skills and capabilities must evolve with our environment and also circumstances. Here are some suggestions on what can we do to embed digital literacy into our class. You may encourage your students to share their knowledge and skills with other students. As everyone uses different devices and applications, there is so much to gain from sharing. Context is essential for the development of digital literacy. For instance, if you are teaching them about interview techniques, introduce them to online interviewing tools such as Google Meet and Zoom. Through practice, digital skills become digital capabilities. Create the opportunities for students to communicate, to learn, to present their work, or to complete their assignments digitally. That is all for now, ladies and gentlemen. I sincerely hope that everyone at least gets a fundamental understanding of digital literacy and its importance to our learners. Thank you.
We thank Encik Rohaizak for his insightful presentations. He is unfortunately not available live, but you can post the questions here and we will take the questions and we can have a discussion as well. There are a few other, experts in digital literacies online, I believe. And I can also forward the questions to Encik Rohaizak. He has a prior engagement. Any questions on digital literacies? If you don't have any questions, I think we can move on to the next session, which is also on the title of digital literacies, but digital literacy framework for primer. This presentation is by Dr. Alex Grech. We're very lucky to have him with us. Unfortunately, he's not available for Q&A session because of the time difference. But you may very well post your questions in the chat box, and I'm sure he's very happy to accommodate any burning questions. And hopefully we can actually bring him here for, for a live session and a Q&A session in another program. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here to talk to you about digital literacy, or specifically digital literacy frameworks. This may seem to be a very complicated territory, and my job here is really to try and get through this material as quickly and clearly as possible, in the hope that there is some more curiosity on your part to explore what I believe are essential skills. We should start from tensions, problems, disconnects. I always find that that is a good way of trying to get people's attention in a way. So this idea of the unresolved tension with digital technologies is pretty much something which is a sign of our times. Over the last 15 years, social media has become very prevalent. There are some who look at new media as a means of our empowerment, our ability to say everything whenever we want to, for instance. A lot of people look at this as a problem. Just think of Silicon Valley hegemonies, too much power in the hands of the few and the powerful. Think of algorithms, think of commercialization. We're always trying to navigate this tension between the two. I think it may be best to start with a couple of definitions just to get us on the same page. So here's one from Future Lab. It's pretty old now. I think it still resonates. Which says that digital literacy refers to the more subtle and situated practices associated with being able to create, understand, and communicate meaning and knowledge in a world in which these processes are increasingly mediated via digital technologies. Let me show you another definition that I came up with together with a team who were devising Malta's national lifelong learning strategy. And this is about having the knowledge and the ability to effectively and critically navigate, evaluate, and create information, again, using a range of digital technologies. I think the assumption was that if we want to have a digitally literate society, that people should be able to use technology strategically with purpose to find and evaluate information, connect and collaborate with others, produce and share original content, and use the internet and technology tools to achieve academic, professional, and personal goals. In practice, if we have to situate digital literacies, we always have to think in terms of content, the platforms where that content is situated or being shared or created, audiences, that's the whole idea about strategy, and inevitably you start thinking of power and influence, whether you're an educator or whether you're a politician who suddenly discovered new media. So let's just pull away from this for a while and just think in terms of digital literacy as the lens that we use to navigate our relationship, our new relationship, or maybe not so new now, our society's relationship with the online world. Well, here's an extreme view of what we mean by navigation. For instance, this was a tool which was developed by the Education Board in Ireland, and levering on the notion of metros and navigating yourself a lot of stuff. Okay, this was a map that they came up with where essentially you're not just looking at tools and technologies and how to teach and learn, but also looking at things which are more nuanced, like identity, like well-being, rather than just finding stuff. What I like about this is that it's mixing things up, not just the utilitarian model of technologies, but also the ability to create, to innovate, and what happens with your identity and well-being as you're going through this experience of navigating technologies. There are other models. For example, this is one from our colleagues in Singapore. They created a model called the DQ, which is Digital Intelligence, a global standard on digital literacy, digital skills, and digital readiness. So if you look at the digital literacy quadrant here, you can see that this literally has to inhabit a space which is also occupied by these complicated things: digital identity, digital safety, digital security, emotional intelligence, complicated territory. One of the things I really want to do is try and keep things simple. So what I'm going to do for the rest of this very short intervention here is to think in terms of digital literacy and the kind of toolkit that we should have to be able to at least become more digitally literate ourselves, because I actually believe that we need digital literacy in the home, in the classroom, and in the boardroom. So think in terms of skill sets, toolkits. And what I have in front of you is a model which was developed by American scholar, one of my teachers, Howard Rheingold, quite a while ago now. It's 10 years old. And what I'm going to do is very quickly take you through what these pieces of the pie are all about: attention, participation, cooperation, what he not very elegantly calls crap detection. He later revised it to say it's about critical consumption, and this notion of awareness of networks, of how they function, and what we do with them. So let's just try and focus, and it's not ironic that I'm using the word focus, on that rarest of skill set, attention. Any of us who have to teach now know that we are looking at young people who are hiding behind the shields of laptops, computers, notepads, phones, and it's very difficult to get anybody's attention. So the one thing that we need to understand is that while we're the only primates with large white areas in our eyes, and that's the way that you can normally tell in a class whether you've got somebody's attention or not, the idea of having somebody's attention when you don't know what's happening on the other side of the screen, and when we are navigating our life through screens, this becomes a real challenge. And specifically within the notion of the attention economy, when anything which is happening out there is always trying to get our attention. I don't think it's an accident of life that most strategists, digital strategists, politicians, even an astronaut in the space station is focusing on TikTok. When you are trying to engage with generations which are increasingly more distracted, how can you get their attention? This really repivots everything for people who are in the education game, like all of us are. I remember that our culture has almost become like this grand supermarket of mediated messages. We're constantly being bombarded by too much information. How do we navigate too much information? So how can we teach young people again to focus, at least focus for a certain period of time when we, our generation, is coming from a culture of literacy, traditional literacy, books, stuff like that. And in a way, we have to look at attention as being a composite, I guess, of different types of pressures on how we navigate this world. The idea that we're moving away from this physical world, and yet the physical still remains the phone that you have in your hand, but moving away from physical attention to psychological attention, to perceptual attention. And I think for educators, before you actually communicate, or before you actually come up with, let's say, the traditional media message, how can you become relevant as quickly as possible when you are dealing with generations of people who at the moment think it's really not in their interest to listen, engage in a way to a traditional lecture? And when those of us who have been in open education for a long time know that there is much relevance, for instance, in blended learning models and in models which are looking at, OER, for instance. So that's one of the things that we should think about, that we need to build up these perspectives in terms of attention, in terms of the tools that we're using, the raw materials that people are getting, that means information from both the media and the real world. And the most important thing is this, our willingness, I think as educators, also our willingness as parents or people in the boardroom to understand that some things have changed drastically over the last couple of years because of this reflexive relationship that there is between technology and society. And you don't have to steer away the understanding that everything which appears on your phone is not a coincidence sometimes, that whatever we search is being logged, that the algorithms are happening in the background. Just think in terms of the very old notion of advertising and how this has been disrupted in the form of native advertising, where form has changed, where the whole idea of what you pay and how you pay for an advert has changed. let alone the idea of functionality, that native apps must behave consistently with the native user experience if they are to function as natural content. In the old days, when we were watching TV, we could go away whilst the adverts were happening and go make a cup of tea. Nowadays, it's very difficult sometimes to know what appears on your timeline as to what's an advert and what isn't. Some of these things have changed drastically. We need to be aware of that. That's the attention component. The other component is participation. And again, those of us who are as old as I am were very excited about the internet in the early days because we all thought everything was going to be revolutionized because of the ability to say and do whatever you wanted to do online. Some of us have been severely disappointed. You know, remember, the people who only think of themselves as consumers of things developed by others have a very different type of citizenship to those who believe they can both produce and participate. There are many optimistic books in internet culture which talk about democratization, for instance, and we've had to rethink this, that the idea of participation has a cultural component, almost like cultural capital, and knowing how to participate, knowing what to say. These are fundamental skills, fundamental 21st century skills now, for not just young people, but even people our age. If you want to take this from a pedagogical perspective, and I'm not expecting you to read what's behind me right now, but for instance, Christian Fuchs, who's a scholar focusing on new media, for instance, says that, well, if you mean participation, there are very different types of participation online. You can even non-participate and just watch. You can partially participate, and sometimes you can really participate fully by producing content. Participation online is nuanced, and we need to understand the differences between non-participation, partial participation, and full participation in new media. The other thing is politics. I quite like the idea of Eugenia Sapiro, who said, it's not politics that is democratized by mobile media in the hands of citizens, but it's mediation. While politics remains as hierarchical and closed as always, it's mediation, the ways in which we acquire information and form opinions about politics can be seen as democratized, in that it is no longer the exclusive monopoly of mainstream media, but shared by citizens. And again, there's a lot of literature about this, how the audience has now become the former audience, and all about disruption of mainstream media outlets and new media ecosystems. Another element of digital literacy we need to be aware about is maybe the utopian model of cooperation. Actually, it's not so utopian. Just think in terms of Wikipedia, which is one of those marvels of cooperation. So we should also think in terms of collective action, how we can all now think collectively. I mean, I live in Malta. I'm speaking to you in Malaysia. It's very easy for me, part of my daily routine. I spend more of my time cooperating, working with people on the other side of the planet, from the US to Sweden, than actually with people who are in my country. So the ability to coordinate increasingly sophisticated and larger scale ways for human beings is all about working together, if you wanted to, for the common benefit. But again, one of the strongest tools we have on our side as humans is this capacity to change the way we think, or as Stockley used to say, to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I come to the not very elegant idea about how to detect rubbish. And here, if we had to do this in a more sophisticated format within an academic perspective, let's just think in terms of critical thinking and media literacy and merging these two things together. You know, that criticizing media, not accepting many of the practices, just think in terms of what's happening with misinformation from where we were in 2018 to what's happening with the Ukraine crisis at the moment. How can you be more open-minded and active in processing media messages versus taking things for granted? How can we get people to question what appears on the screen when, as I said at the very beginning, we're in an attention deficient world when a lot of us, or a lot of young people, are now just used to using the finger to swipe through things that get their attention. So thinking more broadly about the media, including our own experience with the media, understanding how new media works, its political aspect and its economic aspect, and teaching these as skill sets for people. This is extremely important. So consider media in more than one cultural context. What works in Malaysia doesn't necessarily work in Malta or Africa. increasing skepticism of media and their influence on individuals. Well, we've all been through whether it was the Trump years or anything related to that. Okay, let's be skeptic. We really need a more refined aesthetic sense of quality in our media messages. The final element, which I want to share with you, is how can we get people to understand how networks work? Those of us who are interested in networks, ties, strength of weak ties, various theories about balance theories. Okay, networks can appear to be very complicated things for people until you start to draw in a way. Sometimes I do this on a whiteboard and try and explain to people as to how they are connected with people. Think in terms of LinkedIn, which is very much related to the 6 degrees of separation. So getting a basic understanding of how networks really work, I believe, is absolutely fundamental for people becoming more digitally literate. Again, this is an old slide now in terms of how the social graph works or is used by the finite number of hugely powerful social media platforms that we trust, and how connections are made between people and whoever their friends are, whether people are reading the same books as you are and liking the same photos or writing similar blog posts or listening to the same music or integrating with the same kind of sites. All of our data has become Shoshana Zuboff on surveillance capitalism, platform capitalism. This is something that we really need to be aware of. Again, not to scare you or complicate matters, but there are people who are looking at how our profiles are being mapped on different platforms and the way that we use these platforms to think and to communicate, all the way to collaborating with people. But these social activities that we have and the social roles that we have, this ends up being data which is of use to both the state that has to police us, watch over us, and to the economy, and is always interested in how we're behaving. And these are new systems of advertising which are being created. And on the other side, in a way, we can see how our society now is becoming this mesh of the old and the new, your private sphere, your culture, your friends, but also your civil sphere, that wherever you are, this life world on a very structural level is being mapped, and that the way we are living publicly, and sometimes we think privately, is of use to the state and to the economy. I want to almost finish with this one. At the end of some of my courses, I actually ask my students, I say, what do you think you've learned? And I think digital literacies really have to be seen as a composite within essential 21st century skills. And I think we have to look at these skill sets as having value for people in terms of how they need to invest in the lifelong learning. That the notion of just going to university once and you've got a job for life has long been disrupted. That everybody will need to market themselves and their work sometimes, whether it's through a great CV or whether it's through your hobby or whether preparing for the next job. That we all need to curate our online identity. We all need to develop our networks, whether it's for private benefit, but also for public benefit as well. And also this whole notion of how can we manage our information overload? Too much, how can we think creatively? How can we avoid echo chambers, for instance, just to listen to people like us? So again, this whole notion of digital literacies that can enable us to communicate effectively, engage truly as digital citizenship, as digital citizens, eventually becoming more digitally literate. For people like me, we have no choice in this complicated world where there are these tensions that every day we should be trying to decide as we look at something on our screen as to whether it's news or not news, whether it's useful or not useful. The same way, students who are on the other side of a lecture hall or even listening to a lecture are now part of this new world where there is a lot of stuff in a way competing for their attention. Just think in terms of the metaverse around the corner. So I would suggest that digital literacies have to be framed within this ongoing, reflexive, and disruptive relationship between media and society, and the awareness that we need to have that these things are changing all the time. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. I can now position myself somewhere in the middle of this thing, because this is also a sign of the times, isn't it? Disembodied bodies, people talking. We're coming out of 2 years of COVID. I just hope that eventually we can all go back to doing what we used to do one day, meeting human beings, trying to do our best. But let's be aware of the fact that a lot has changed because of technology. A lot has changed because of COVID. And I actually strongly believe that education is not going to go back to the old and trusted models that it had. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Dr. Alex Grech, although he's not exactly with us online. But I hope it has the presentation, which is really, really, I think, addresses some important questions that we may have thought or we may have not thought about before. So I hope it is beneficial to everyone. As we have mentioned in the chat, please type on all your questions there. A little brief explanation, or rather description of the program before we go into the last presentation. This program, this knowledge dissemination program, is actually is an initiative by the university. The motivation behind it is actually to promote education for 21st century skills. Education for 21st century. So where each country have a specific framework for 21st century learning, what we did was we looked at the framework that is promoted by P21 or Partnership 21 and take that framework and sort of address different parts of the framework through this program. So this is the first of the session where we focus on the basically the 3R, which refers to reading, writing, and arithmetic, as well as the essential skills for 21st century, which refers to information, media, and technology. And in addition, what comes after this is a sort of, I would say, a promotional lecture on the Japanese language. Why we do that is because one of the basic courses, the subjects that is promoted under the P21 is also world languages. So in this particular program, we are promoting Japanese, and because why we promote, because this is sort of a collaboration with the Faculty of Education and Social Science, so that, you know, they could actually, more and more people will know about this. And it's also interesting to learn about different culture, because the video is not just about the language, but we also introduce a little bit, a personal introduction to the course leader for the international languages. Another sort of a short announcement that I like to make is that for the 5 basic literacy skills that we have explored in this program, if any of the academic or non-academic who are interested in research in these areas, please email me directly. We would very much like to know who are interested with these programs. Be research programs, not just not knowledge-based program, but research. So with that, let's move on to the next and last session, a topic on world languages, a chapter on Japanese language, culture, and a personal story. I hope you enjoyed this session.
Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum and good morning. Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu. OUM no Mehd Rosli de gozaimasu. Kyou wa Nihongo, Nihon bunka, soshite Nihon ni ita toki no jibun no keiken ni tsuite setsumei sasete itadakimasu. I am Md Rosli of OUM. Today I would like to explain a little bit about the Japanese language, Japanese culture, and my own experience when I was in Japan. At OUM, we have module OUMH 1503, Japanese language for basic communication. The course learning outcomes are to pronounce the sounds of the Japanese language, communicate in simple Japanese, read selected short text, write hiragana and katakana, and last but not least, construct short sentences. The module consists of 10 topics which cover the introduction of the Japanese writing system, self-introduction, time and days, and some basic communication skills like going shopping, eating out, and visiting. There are 3 types of characters of scripts in Japanese language writing. 2 types of kana, which consist of hiragana and katakana, as well as kanji. Hiragana is curly like English cursive, while katakana is more blockish and sharp. The major difference between hiragana and katakana is the fact that hiragana is primarily used to represent Japanese words, while katakana represents foreign words. Japanese is a language with many borrowed words, and katakana immediately alerts the reader to the fact that the word is an imported one. In the modern Japanese language, both hiragana and katakana comprise a set of 46 basic characters and their modified forms. Each character represents the sound of a syllable. Kanji refers to logographic Chinese characters taken from the Chinese script and used in the writing of Japanese. They were made a major part of the Japanese writing system during the time of the Old Japanese and are still used along with hiragana and katakana. At OUM, beginners are exposed to the hiragana and katakana writing systems, which are the basic vowels of A, I, U, E, and O. Then the combination of vowels such as Ke, Ka, Kiku, Keko, Sashi, Su, Seso, Tachi, Tu, Teto, and so forth. Beside the writing systems, learners will learn daily greetings and common expressions such as Ohayo gozaimasu, Konnichiwa, Konbanwa, Oyasumi nasai, Arigato gozaimasu, Sumimasen, Itadakimasu. Beside the module OUMH 1503, I would like to share my 2 Japanese books on the Japanese writing system, which is called Hiragana o Benkyou Shimashou, and the other one is Kanji o Benkyou Shimashou. These 2 books were published in 2019, which are a collaboration with my junior and senior at University Terengganu, Malaysia, UMT. Dr. Roswati Abdul Rashid and Puan Rohani Hamzah. And this is my short article published in 1989 when I was in my 3rd year. The title is Otagai no Rikai to Sonkei Shiau Koto no Taisetsu, which the meaning is the importance of mutual understanding and respect. The content is about my own experience as a foreign student residing in Japan, which I encountered a lot of challenges in terms of language, food, culture, worldview, and so forth. My journey to Japan started in 1985 when I was offered an admission to the University of Malaya. I discontinued my A-level at Malay College Kuala Kangsar, which I had enrolled on for 5 months. I was thinking that time that it was better if I got to know another language besides English. So I was at University Malaya from 1985 until 1987 and successfully enrolled on Keio University, which is one of the most prestigious universities in Japan. It was a struggle for me when I needed to adjust myself to a new environment quickly. Homesick, missed family, and friends in Malaysia were some of the challenges at that time. There is a ray of light at the end of each tunnel. Alhamdulillah, I managed to make myself graduate on time from the Faculty of Business and Commerce, Keio University in 1991. I got a job at Bank of Tokyo headquarters after going through a stringent selection process in which the first round was written tests on mathematics and English and translation of English into Japanese.
I went through on the job training in many departments such as letter of credit, letter of guarantee, foreign exchange, and treasury. It was such an awesome experience for me. Besides, I had to learn about bank operations and Japanese work culture through correspondence as directed by the company, as in those days we didn't have the internet. After 2 years of working there in 1993, I decided to return for good to look after my late parents. My 6 years of lived experience in Japan was a very valuable one, which I had never thought of before. Now, let me share with you a bit of the Japanese culture. The first one is the concept of uchi and soto. Uchi is someone close to us, that is family members, husband, wife, children, parents. While soto is besides our uchi, it can be anyone besides family members. The same concept also applies to an organization, to which uchi refers to office mates, boss, subordinates, or anyone in the same organization. In the meanwhile, soto is anyone besides uchi, which are clients, suppliers, etc. This concept reflects to sense of belonging, trustworthiness, and humbleness. In contrast, uchi does not trust soto for certain reasons. There is a saying, Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi, which means demon is outside, happiness is inside. Another concept is a horenso, which is derived from 3 words which are hokoku, renraku, and sodan. This is a part of the Japanese work culture in which hokoku is reporting anything that happened in the past, while renraku is informing the present situation that is ongoing. Finally, sodan is to acquire advice and view for future plans or improvements. Therefore, this concept is applicable to any organization to ensure a smooth selling operation and to avoid something under the carpet.
Oh, I think they are from our competitor company A. I wonder what they are doing here.
How did the meeting at K Corporation go today?
It went really well, sir.
John, that's great. Well, we didn't get the project because our quote was too high. We didn't know our competitor company A was actively negotiating about the project.
Oh, I forgot to tell you that I saw some people from Company A coming out of K Corporation right before I had that meeting.
Why didn't you tell me you saw them when you came back from K Corporation? Now our competitor got the project.
Oops. Something went wrong with the machine.
Oh no, it's already 5 o'clock and all the mechanics are going home now. What do we do?
Let's not call the mechanics now. We can fix it by ourselves. That wasn't so difficult. It's working again. Oh no. It's not working again. I thought I fixed it yesterday.
What is going on here?
There was a problem with this machine yesterday, but I thought it was easy enough to fix it by myself and didn't call the mechanics. Now it looks worse than it did yesterday.
Why did you try to fix it by yourself? You should have called the mechanics immediately, no matter how small the problem was. Hi John, could you please get 2017 numbers from the Vice President of Sales for me by Friday? The CEO in Japan will need them for the conference call next week.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Let me know if you have any questions, okay?
The Vice President of Sales is on business trip now and he won't be back until next week. I guess I'll have to submit the numbers from the third quarter.
The numbers I received was not the latest numbers. I needed the fourth quarter, not the third.
John, why didn't you give me the latest numbers? The CEO is very upset.
I'm so sorry, but the vice president of sales was out last week and I couldn't get the fourth quarter numbers.
You should have told me when you found out that the director of sales was out last week. I could have postponed the conference call.
Don't you remember the Horenzo system you learned when you joined this company? Horenzo stands for Hokaku, report, Renraku, contact, and Sodan, consult, in Japanese. This abbreviation refers to one of Japan's fundamental business communication techniques and is taught to new employees as soon as they join the Japanese workforce. This system says that when problem occurs, workers should report the issue and not keep it to themselves. They should contact the relevant people, your boss, in this case, and they should consult with others to get their advice.
I made my own decision because I didn't want to waste my boss's time, but I guess I should have asked him first.
Using the Horenzo system to keep in close communication with the Japanese may seem time-consuming, but it will increase their trust in your decision-making ability. You may find that by not fixing everything on your own, you actually gain more trust and authority.
Finally, I would like to touch on addressing people. There should be a suffix at the end of the name. Since the Japanese language is hierarchical, therefore Japanese honorifics can be divided into sama, san, kun, and chan. Sama is addressed to customers or guests. San is common honorific used that equivalent to Miss, Mr., Mrs. Kun is male honorific referring to men in general and by superiors to address their juniors. Chan is female honorific used for girls, close friends, or children. Senpai is for senior, kohai for junior, in schools or companies. Sensei is addressed those who are professionals like doctors, lawyers, lecturers, and hakase is equivalent to professor. I think that's all for today, my sharing, and I do hope to share with you again in some other time. Minasan, kyou wa koremade watashi no happyou desu ga, itsuka mata aimashou. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosli. Dr. Rosli is here online. So if you have any questions, this is more of a friendly session. You're free to ask him questions directly.
Let's go to Japan one day, all of us.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it is a beautiful country. Any questions? Okay, there is a question from the public forum. One question, is the basic module open to private learners, meaning not registered as a FT or PT or UM student? Not at the moment, right?
Yes. But maybe in the future, we would like to have that also open for the public.
You can answer that. Any other questions?
Dr. Thiru,
Yes.
good morning, Madam Tay here. Is a nice listening to all those information given and knowledge given. Thank you very much. I'm very interested to know more about the Japanese language, Dr. Rosli. How can we
Yes.
actually use this to promote, especially if you want to bring back our students, our alumni, maybe a short course that will interest them to get back to OUM, like this Japanese language.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much to APT. All right, we do have a micro credential. Perhaps one of the course we may introduce through micro credential later on with with the consent of the management later on.
Right, thank you very much. But if you do happen to get it done, so please let us know so LCs can promote to all the students. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Safia mentioned glad to be part of UCI. Did I use the right? Yes, yes, we are UCI together. All of us is UCI. So we don't trust outsiders, so be careful. When we talk about UCI and Soto, we should trust UCI more than you trust outsider as Soto. So that's why let me elaborate about Uchi and Soto. When I work in Japanese company, Nisho EY, one of the conglomerate company in Malaysia, our transaction is more to the Japanese people because they even though they are here, but most of the transaction they would do with the Japanese companies rather than local Malaysian companies.
Yeah, that seems like a trust issue there, but it's
Yes.
different culture, different cup of tea for everyone. So that was really interesting. I think if for those who are interested in other world languages and the culture, normally when they teach cultures, when they teach languages, particularly languages taught by the embassies, they do teach along with the culture. I think next upcoming is a Korean language. I think that will, hopefully we would be able to offer, I think, maybe end of next year. I think for that you will have to discuss with Hilman. But that's open for students. I'm not sure if the faculty would like to open the languages for academic staff or not. So that's another question for another forum. So thank you very much, Dr. Rosli. Since there's no
Most
other
welcome.
questions, I think thank you for sharing your experience. And hopefully you get to go again to Japan. I am for sure would like to go there again.
I miss Japan. It has been quite some time. I have not been there.
I've never been there.
Right.
And I like to recognize the fact that today we have many programs. So there might be staff who would like to participate but didn't get the opportunity. So we will share the link to these recordings to all the staff. So you can then view it. And if you have any question, you can email to CRI. We'll try to address as many as we could. So before we actually end the program, I would like to thank all the presenters for a meaningful sharing session. And also on behalf of the center and the university, we'd like to thank all the participants, our staff and the public for joining us today and for the lively conversation. We hope to have more conversations in the future. And also, on behalf of the center, we would like to acknowledge the tireless effort, not only from the staff of the Center for Research and Innovation, but also whom I call the creative team, largely from Center for Instructional Design and Technology. And we also have other staff. We have, I think, do we want to show around? Can we? Okay, they're okay. But I think you all know who they are. We also would like to thank Suhaimi Kasim and Razif Masri outside the creative team who has been supportive of this initiative. So thank you very much. Hope to see everyone again. Next year, we will have a similar session, and we're going to focus on the second layer of literacy skills that is more addressing the global needs. Thank you and have a pleasant day.